Is your company ready for what's next? We've got what you need right here on the Leadership Voice. Is your company ready for what's next? Right now on the Leadership Voice. Welcome to the Leadership Voice. I'm your host, Jay Barbuto. Today's show is about strategic foresight. Joining us today are Jenny Dinnen, co-owner and president of MacKenzie & Company and founder of Next Gen Collaborative. And we also have Richard Ramsey, Ex-Oficio vice president of HR for the Walt Disney Company. We also have a great leadership lesson being delivered by yours truly. Let's get things started with our quote of the day. Today's quote comes from Anand Mahindra. Nobody understands how the world will change. The only way you can plan for the future is to have scenarios. Our first guest today is Jenny Dinnen. Jenny is the co-owner and president of MacKenzie, a boutique customer insights firm, and she is also co-founder of Next Gen Collaborative, working with next-gen family business leaders. Please welcome to the show, Jenny Dinnen.
Hi, thank you.
Jenny, it's great to have you on the show to share insights around strategic foresight. Maybe we could start by, you could share a little bit about your story and how did your career evolve towards marketing analytics?
Well, one, thank you for having me. This is so fun to be here and be on campus here at Cal State Fullerton. So I, as you alluded in my intro, work within a family business. So I grew up with two entrepreneurial parents. They both own their own business. And so growing up, especially in my dad's business, he had a market research company. And my first job in high school, probably even junior high, was data entering customer satisfaction surveys in the power sports world. So motorcycles, ATVs, boats. So I would data enter comments, and I fell in love with people on the other end of marketing campaigns and of surveys and whatnot. And I was fascinated from the very beginning of what made people tick. And so I just thought, how do I do more of this? And and kind of the question of how did I get into marketing, I wanted to be on the front end of creating campaigns as opposed to just on the back end of monitoring the results of what happened on the back of it.
So I can see that. So that's how it all started for you.
Yeah.
So how did it evolve into the company, into MacKenzie?
So growing up, I never dreamt about being in a family business. That wasn't a thing. My dad had his own business. So I went off. Got a degree, University of Colorado, got my MBA, worked at Home Depot, HSBC Bank, worked my way up in their creative marketing side of the house, which was amazing. Incredible leaders. There's just a lot to be said about working at big corporations. And even there, really having leaders reminding me always, let's get out of our cubicles, back in the day, let's get out of our cubicles and go talk to the customers that we were with. So spent quite a bit of years outside of the family business, I'll say. And then about 15, 20 years ago, circled back to the business. So I can kind of talk more about that.
And that's when you started MacKenzie then?
No. So MacKenzie is a family business. So my dad started it, and we just celebrated our 40th year last month. So it started in the bonus room of our house. So, I grew up, born and raised. I said I've been doing this for a minute and a few decades. So we decided, and actually I now run the business with my twin sister, Katie. We both came back separately, but we came back into the business about 15 years ago and started saying, okay, what is this? Growing up, we weren't 100% sure what the business was, but we started asking questions. And I will say in the data analytics, customer insight space, it was an explosion that was happening about 15, 20 years ago, and has only fast forwarded since. So we came back in to the business, and it was fun to come full circle all the way back around. I will say back on the analytics side of it. So I went out and was able to work on the creative side of the house. And now looking back, I was like, gosh, my campaigns would have been so much more successful if we would have dug even deeper into the analytics. So now it's fun being on this side of the house and working with a lot of sales, marketing leaders, but looking at the numbers and the people behind the scenes.
And so MacKenzie is a customer insights company. So
Yeah.
if a company wanted to understand their customers better, they'd come to you?
Yeah, so we really work with people to understand, figure out who their customers are, how to find more of them, how to stay in touch with them. I mean, that's a big piece of it. We also really want to make sure that we're understanding the human beings on the other side of the campaigns or the products that we're serving. So I always say I'm curious by nature. I mean, I think we know each other, and I love asking questions and figuring it out. So we give people, I mean customers, but really people, a voice. And we get to connect them to customers so that the company, or to companies, so that companies can better understand them, so that they can create better products, services, and experiences for them. So we're matchmakers.
And the company's been going for 40 years.
Yeah.
And you've been part of the company for...
I mean, forever, but technically in management and leadership, 15, 20 years.
So going along, you're a consulting company, a customer insights company, you have all the answers. Well, when did you realize you didn't have all the answers?
I'm not sure if I ever thought I had all of the answers, because there's always more to dig in and to do. But, you know, running this analytics company, and I mean, you know this world very well, the speed at which things are happening is incredibly fast. So a lot of times people say, like, how is it running this business? And it is very exciting and crushingly overwhelming trying to keep up. There's so much information, there's so much data, there's so many tools that are happening. But what I started to realize, and Kate and I realized a few years ago, is companies are paralyzed and frozen, drowning in information. So I was like, what's the problem here? Like, we're collecting more and more and more information, and we're not getting more clarity here. So there's something that's missing. So we started realizing more data is not necessarily the problem, but listening better and connecting better is the answer. So we're like, how do we do things differently? You know, this isn't just about let's go and track more. How do we slow down? How do we make more human connection? How do we ask better questions?
So how does strategic foresight find its way into that?
Ooh. Oh, it's been such a gift. So I was formally introduced to this world. So I've always thought, you know, because I think it's a new thing and a new way of thinking, but not really. Like, I've always thought in my mind, there's got to be a better way. Like, why aren't we doing things differently? And I was always the one that was like questioning of, let's figure things out differently. I was introduced to the world of strategic foresight formally in 2019, November 2019, before the pandemic, which was awesome, through the Future School. Went to some training there. But we started realizing, how can we, instead of just asking people today, like in, you know, a lot of the research that we do is, a lot of the surveys are customer satisfaction. So overall, how satisfied are you? Or your net promoter score, would you recommend? I mean, it's sort of like what people do. How do we dig in deeper? And this world's really opened this whole other world of like, let's explore further. Let's see what's whispering out there. Let's see what's trying to bubble up and emerge. Let's look outside of our areas, our silos that we're in. And so we've added it in conjunction to the work that we're doing. We're not taking out the people and the humans and connecting with them, but it's opened up an entire additional toolkit for what we need to ask better questions and to be more proactive instead of just being so reactive to what's happening today.
And so customer insights without strategic foresight would really be talking about the past.
Yeah, or like right now. So that's it too. Like before we were doing analytics, so we were looking at the past to predict. Then we thought, okay, now let's come today and say, what do you want today? But now we want to be looking forward. So we're just extending the lens and opening it up. It doesn't mean we're not going to look back, because great futurists are great historians. But how do we start looking forward instead of just looking back?
So if we're starting to ask things like, how could it be better? What do you need next year? How do you see your business changing?
Yes.
Or you start sort of introducing this world of future.
Yeah, 100%. Instead of just saying, well, this is the way we've always done it here. Or how do we just project out further on this predictive based on the past? What can we change? And asking these, what's possible? Like how else can we look at this problem?
So some folks watching may have various degrees of experience or exposure to strategic foresight. Just give people kind of an overview. What is strategic foresight?
Yeah, so strategic foresight is an incredible discipline about exploring the future, multiple futures, which you'll hear sometimes is we're not predicting the future, we're exploring multiple futures and multiple scenarios. So there's an entire set of tools and techniques and procedures. And I always say too, is getting us ready for change, right? It's trying to get us to spot the patterns, challenge assumptions, play out different scenarios so that when these different things happen, we're more prepared and we can be reacting more quickly. This is not about, because one of the things that I hear sometimes is, Jenny, this is great, but I don't have time to deal with the future. I need to deal with today. So strategic foresight, just to kind of clarify as well, is not about what we're going to do in the future. It's about what we're going to do today so that we create the future that we want. And this is creating us and opening up and getting us ready for the future.
So how has strategic foresight changed or elevated your work at MacKenzie?
Oh, it's opened the world to so many incredible ideas. I mean, it feels like before, especially in a world that's moving so fast and there's so many things going on, and complexity, and a lot of people are like, how do we go back to normal, and how do we control, and how do we do these things? It's given me these tools to be excited about ambiguity and lean into uncertainty and open up doors that I never thought was possible. And it's allowed us with our clients to ask questions and to go deeper with people than we ever thought possible. They always kind of say you can't solve the same problems with the solutions that we've had before. So it takes things to a new different dimension, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even have to worry about this because there's so many doors that have opened because of this world.
Seems like in customer insights, there's like layers of what you could be asking people.
Yeah.
There's like, how was it?
Yes.
How is it?
Yes.
What do you need?
Yeah. What's next? Like, what have we not dreamt about? And I just love too, it's going below the surface. I mean, that's the thing with customer insights in general, is how do we get below the surface? Because if done right, customer insights could be a competitive advantage, or it should. You shouldn't just be asking those surface level questions. But now when things happen, right, in the world, there's so many things that happen. Instead of just reacting to what's above the surface, I mean, there's tools to get below, but instead of just fighting at this level, or if change isn't working, or if something's not happening, I was like, I wonder what's happening underneath. Like, what are those value shifts? What's underneath that's motivating people? And when we can get below the surface, then we can start making magic, and then we can start changing things. And so I feel like we're having deeper, better connections with people, which is what people want right now, so we can create better products, services, and experiences.
So what advice would you give someone if they're just getting exposed, as maybe they're watching this show for the first time, they're hearing this strategic foresight concept for the first time. If they're just getting started on this, what would be your advice to them?
Ooh, my advice to them. I mean, this entire world is about questioning and learning and knowing. I mean, I think one of the questions was, when did I know that I didn't know all the answers? I don't know all the answers, right? I mean, part of this is learning, but it's unlearning, it's challenging assumptions, it's learning again. I mean, go out and talk to people. My husband, I'm in a lot of different groups and networks and things. And he says, you're always talking to people in totally different worlds that have nothing to do with your job or your industry. I'm like, exactly, because I want to know what's happening over here and start seeing these connections. So, I mean, I would tell people to get out of their silos, challenge assumptions. I always say, is that true? Like, what else could be true? What else could be possible? There's so many good books out there, but one that's not specifically related to strategic foresight, but I recommend all the time. There's a lady, Monica Guzman, and she wrote a book called I Hadn't Thought of It That Way. And it's incredible. And I'm on a mission to have I hadn't thought about it that way moments. And in the book, instead of asking surface level things, she said about like, who did you vote for? What do you do? Or what's going on? The question to ask people is, tell me your experience with that. And oh my gosh, it opens the door so much. Because if somebody has a differing opinion, or I don't understand where they're coming from, I said, tell me your experience with that. And then you can watch people, they lean in. And even if I don't agree with it, or I'm like not right on, I'm like, I hadn't thought about it that way. And it unlocks some things. So I would challenge people to have more I hadn't thought about it that way moments.
And it's a better path for empathy as well.
And then, I mean, then I can understand where they're coming from. And quite honestly, if I still want to move them over here, well, then I can understand what their experience is, as opposed to just trying to get them. I mean, this comes back to leadership, but.
Oh, great. Well,
yeah.
Well, Jenny, thank you so much for joining us on today's show. We're going to, in a little while, we're going to have you back with Richard as part of our leadership panel, so you'll stick around for that?
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Great. It's now time for a featured segment of the Leadership Voice. It's today's Did You Know? 71% of executives worldwide consider adaptability to be the most important leadership quality. 63% of CEOs struggle to find and recruit talent that can adapt to changing business needs. Additionally, 60% of employers believe that adaptability is more important now than in the past. So, if your organization can create a culture of adaptability, you will be far ahead of the curve. It's now time for today's Leadership Countdown. Today we bring you the 9 steps for organizational agility. Number 1, establish a shared vision and purpose. Number 2, foster a culture of adaptability. Number 3, empower teams and individuals. Number 4, promote cross-functional collaboration. Number 5, embrace continuous learning and improvement. The 6th step for fostering organizational agility is focus on outcomes, not just outputs. Number 7, build a stable foundation of agility. Number 8, embrace the 3 A's, anticipate, adapt, and act. And the 9th step for organizational agility is prioritize innovation and experimentation. Don't go anywhere. We have Richard Ramsey in the studio right after a word from the Giles O'Malley Center for Leadership. The Bringing Learning to Work program is our way of connecting the faculty of Cal State Fullerton with the business community of Orange County and Southern California. We have over 72 training programs that are available via distance or face-to-face. And the faculty come to your company and they deliver the training to your employees.
The Bringing Learning to Work program is really fundamentally, it's leadership programming. We do diversity and emotional intelligence training. We partner with Cal State Fullerton because they had subject matter experts in these fields, and we're really fortunate and privileged to be able to do that.
Many companies can't afford training and development personnel, and so this is a great opportunity to leverage Cal State's faculty to help them develop their learning programs.
The leadership of the center and the students allow me to not only bring leadership development to my company, but allow me to interact with some amazing students who have grit, potential, and just amazing futures in front of them, and I get to take part of that. It's a wonderful feeling.
When your organization is ready to develop its talent, reach out to the Center for Leadership and we'll help get you there. Welcome back to the Leadership Voice. Our next guest is Richard Ramsey. Richard was Vice President of Human Resources for the Direct-to-Consumer and International Division of the Walt Disney Company after a 38-year career with global roles across several continents. Please welcome to the show, Richard Ramsey.
Thanks, Jay. It's great to be back.
Richard, thank you for being on the show to share your insights and thoughts around strategic foresight. Let's start with your story. Tell people a little bit about your Disney journey.
Sure. Well, I worked for the Disney Company for my entire adult career. I started working there in college, selling souvenirs on Main Street, and eventually moved into human resources and spent 19 years in the theme park side of the business before moving up to the studio businesses, animation, home entertainment, theatrical distribution, And I finished my career working in Walt Disney International and the direct-to-consumer business. And that's the businesses outside of the U.S. that are not the theme parks.
And at the theme parks, which theme parks did you work at?
I started at Disneyland, and then I also helped open up Disneyland Paris back in 1992.
Okay, well, great. So you've had a really storied
I have.
career. There's not a lot of people, especially nowadays, there's not a lot of people that spend their entire career with one organization. But in many ways, you had many careers
Yes.
at that organization.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of the projects that you worked on and how did strategic foresight sort of find its way? What emerged as a problem for which you needed strategic foresight?
Well, if you think back to the 2000s, 2012 specifically for me, I was working for Walt Disney International. And that was the time where there was this explosion of business moving from analog and physical distribution to digital distribution or direct-to-consumer and streaming. And the chairman of Walt Disney International came to my boss, and he came to me and said, we need you to help us think about what type of people do we need to staff our organization over the next 10 plus years. And I quickly realized that traditional labor forecasting and talent planning wouldn't get me where I needed to go. I needed a way to imagine what's the world going to look like 10, 20 years from now? What are people doing? How are they consuming? What are they consuming? And what skills and talents would be required to serve those guests or customers? And that's where I discovered strategic foresight. Serendipitously, former employee, Yvette Salvatico, left and formed a partnership with a futurist, Frank Spencer, and formed the Futures School. They came back and said, we have something we think could help you move into the future. So my boss and I sat down with them. We learned about what strategic foresight was, and we quickly realized we need this, and that's what started my work in foresight.
And so strategic foresight, for you, what is it?
Well, part of it is understanding our worldview and our biases and assumptions that might prevent us from seeing signals of change. And then once we do that, we need to start looking, exploring for signals, whispers of things happening out there that could lead to disruption or change in our industry or in the environment that we're working in.
So what are the mechanics of strategic foresight? If an organization said, all right, I'm sold,
Yes.
how do we operate so that we start empowering strategic foresight?
Well, I'll tell you what we did. We realized right away that in order to make this successful that we needed executive sponsors. So we identified 12 executive sponsors across the globe to lead the work in our markets. Then we trained 2 to 3 people from cross functions to lead the work. And then we built teams with the help of the Future School around the world to build a foresight practice.
You certainly need to involve a variety of people, high-level executives,
Yes.
to get them engaged in the process.
Yes.
What do you ask them to do?
Well, scan for signals of change, develop maps of the future or scenarios, stories about the future, and we develop multiple futures so we can begin to say, what would a transformative world look like? What would a market or more linear forecast in the future look like? And what would a darker view of the world look like? And then, based on our current strategies, would our company survive in those? And if not, what shifts do we need to make in our strategic plans to survive in those multiple worlds?
And so you're creating a readiness,
Yes,
a readiness for possibilities
yes,
of an uncertain future.
correct.
And that's really the principles of what strategic foresight can give an organization.
It expands the organization's thinking because traditionally organizations have an official future. Well, if that future is wrong, it can be very vulnerable to disruption. And with multiple futures, you can begin to look for signals that the future is moving in one direction or the other and make adjustments to your strategies.
So it's possible that if you do strategic foresight really well, then the environment changes. It might change right into a spot where you say, we're ready for that.
Yeah, we've already thought about it. We've imagined that world, and we know what we need in order to survive and to prosper.
And so then when it's time to make that shift, those that have been involved, they're ready for it.
Correct.
They're receptive
Yes.
to it.
Yes.
They're adaptable.
Correct.
So strategic foresight creates agility.
Absolutely.
So what are the risks of not embracing strategic foresight?
Well, as I mentioned, if you have an official future that hasn't anticipated these shifts and hasn't given your employees and your leaders an opportunity to explore what would we do if we move this way or this way, you're going to be vulnerable to disruption and to seeing your business erode.
So, there's an expression of hope. And they say that how do we lose hope, or how does an organization lose hope, or how do people lose hope? And hope always, it's one of two things. Mm-hmm. Either it's the will, like you never fight, you never give up, you always keep driving forward, and the other is a way. And as long as you can find a way, you'll never lose hope. It seems like strategic foresight kind of is a pathway to never losing hope.
Absolutely, and it gives you a way to think about your preferred future and take actionable steps towards that future that you hope for.
Mm-hmm. And by having multiple scenarios, if something goes wrong, you have a backup plan.
Absolutely.
And a backup plan to that backup plan. And you have so many, you've considered enough scenarios that you're less likely to be left without a clue.
Yeah, you won't be surprised because you'll identify signposts that probably would occur if you were moving this direction or this direction. You'll see them in advance.
You'll start to see the paths starting to lay themselves out.
Those patterns will start to emerge.
So what is the role of senior leaders in this process? Earlier you talked about developing a team, but what is the role of senior leaders in getting this moving?
I think the biggest thing that they do is protect the work. Most organizations are designed to act in short-term ways. Quarterly reports and performance, annual reports. And when you start to pull people into work that is thinking about 20 years in the future, oftentimes the organizational antibodies come out and try to kill it because they don't want to spend time doing things that don't contribute to their quarterly results. So we found that when our chairman said, this is important work, I'm funding it, I want you to create time and space for people to work on this work, the work moved forward. If a leader was reluctant to do that, the work quickly dies.
So culturally speaking, there are some cultures, not just organizational cultures, but there are cultures, societies, that are more long-term oriented.
Yes.
They're probably more receptive to strategic foresight.
Yes.
And cultures that are more short-term oriented or quarterly or focused on the next 3 months, they're probably going to be less receptive to foresight. So it's a tougher sell for them.
They really struggle with it.
So what advice would you give an executive that isn't currently practicing strategic foresight?
Great question. I would say it's easy to criticize something that you're not familiar with or you don't understand. So talk to someone. Talk to an organization that's practicing foresight. Why are they doing it? How have their results been? What benefits are they seeing from it? Read. There's lots of literature out there about foresight. Attend a course and begin to open your mind and inform yourself about what it is. And everyone that I've introduced to foresight over the years has said, this is what I've been looking for. And it's energized the work that they were doing either within their organization or even personally.
Well, great. Richard, I want to thank you for joining us on today's show and taking part in this interview. Will you stick around for the leadership panel? We're going to bring Jenny back and we'll unpack some more ideas around this.
I'd love to.
It's now time for our leadership example. Today's leadership example comes from digitaldefend.com. We give you the 7 epic examples of strategic business pivots. Don't go anywhere. We have our leadership lesson coming up after this exciting news from the Giles O'Malley Center for Leadership. Welcome back. It's now time for our leadership lesson. Today I will talk about adaptability and the 3 orders of change. I'm Jay Barbuto, and here is today's leadership lesson. Today's organizations face constant disruption, from global pandemics to rapidly evolving technologies. Traditional models of change like Kurt Lewin's thaw, change, refreeze model are no longer sufficient in this fluid environment. Change is no longer a one-time event, it's an ongoing cycle. To stay agile, organizations must embrace third-order change. Let's start with the 3 orders of change. First-order change involves minor tweaks within the current system, upgrading software, switching vendors, or improving workflow. It's quick and simple, but limited in impact. Second-order change shifts the whole paradigm. Think of IBM's transformation from a typewriter company to a leader in computing. These changes are bold, often risky, and require buy-in at many levels. Third-order change goes even deeper. It's not about committing to a single direction. It's about building change readiness into your culture. Leaders and teams collaborate to explore multiple paths, understand the conditions under which each might succeed, and prepare to pivot as needed. This approach demands more time and preparation, but the payoff is resilience. It's how financial firms manage portfolios in real time, or how companies shift product strategies based on customer feedback. Third-order change gives organizations true agility, the ability to change when its conditions demand it, not after it's too late. What does this mean for leaders? In first-order change, leaders just need to announce and reinforce. Second-order change, leaders need to inspire, explain, and sell a new vision. But third-order change, leaders must foster open dialogue, transparency, and team ownership. What about employees? First-order change asks for acceptance. Second-order change asks for full implementation. Third order invites them to co-create, change paths, and plan for future shifts. In closing, the world is not slowing down. If your organization needs to keep pace, third order change is not just an option, it's a necessity. By building a culture of collaborative adaptability, you ensure your organization can weather uncertainty and thrive in whatever comes next. I'm Jay Barbuto, and this has been your Leadership Lesson. We're back for our leadership panel. Jenny and Richard, thank you so much for rejoining us.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
So the way this works is we'll have a few questions and you'll both have a chance to answer each of them. Jenny, of course, will go first, and here is our first question. Our first question is to share a cautionary tale. Describe a time that you or an organization was purely reactive. What happened?
Oh my gosh. Oh, one time. So, I mean, what comes to mind just in general, because we've worked with clients that are reactive or whatnot, but even in our own family business. So, and I had mentioned before that we work with a lot of family businesses, and at least even without kind of sharing names of others, but within our own family business, there's a very big thing of like, this is the way we've always done it here. And this is the path that we're going on. And I will just say that we were stuck for a while with our business of this is what we're doing, this is where we're going, these are the clients that we work with. And when there's a large change that happens, we were unprepared, I will say. And it took a while for us to be able to pivot and grow because we didn't have any other options down the road of what we were thinking about. So when Kate and I came in, there were some large changes that happened in the economy, in the industries that we were working in, and it took a long time for us to have to pivot, grow, change, and do things. And I feel like now, looking back, if we would have, and now we actually, which I guess we'll talk about going forward, we've done some future of customer insights and future projects within our own business that's making us a lot more resilient going forward.
So you came out the other side of that experience with
a little bruised and whatnot, and probably...
But better for it.
Better for it, yeah, and lessons learned.
All right, so Richard, it's going to be the same question for you.
Sure.
Describe a time that you or an organization was purely reactive. What went wrong?
Well, I'll say not just an organization, but an industry. You know, I worked for the Disney company, and the entertainment industry had a hard time shedding its commitment to out-of-home entertainment, like particularly in theatrical distribution. The people who ran the distribution of films into theaters had a hard time imagining that people would want to sit in their homes and watch a full-length film. And so they stayed committed to this way of thinking. This is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
Why would people want to watch a film on their couch on a smaller screen? Well, guess what? People love doing that. And it took a long time for the industry to catch up to that idea. And companies like Netflix were out in front of it. And the entertainment industry, the major studios have been chasing Netflix ever since.
So the opportunity was there if they had the foresight.
Correct.
And
That term that you used, I just love that term that you said. They weren't able to imagine what was possible.
Right.
Like that's the thing, is getting people to imagine what's possible. Like that could never happen, but that changed.
Well, and particularly outside of the United States, we were seeing people watching things, watching movies on devices the size of a thumbnail. And we watched our children, our grandchildren, watching movies on phones and tablets. But those who'd been in the industry for a long time had a really hard time embracing the idea of watching a movie that they had spent millions of dollars on a really small screen. But think of the way people consume now. It's ubiquitous.
So we talked about a cautionary tale, which was great. Now our next question is to share a success story, or how has strategic foresight saved the day?
We built teams, Foresight teams, futures teams around the world, and our Russian team in particular was really good at it. And what we saw them do was to build these stories of the future in Russia that allowed them to anticipate this erosion of access by Western media companies to the Russian market. It quickly declined, so both film and consumer product distribution quickly devolved there, and our futures team there put that in their scenarios, and it allowed them to provide guidance to the strategic planning group.
That's great. So, Jenny, it's going to be the same question for you. Share a success story of how Strategic Foresight set up a company for success.
Yeah, I'm definitely not in Russia. That's incredible. I mean, the work that you do. So we do, we worked on a project a couple of years ago on the future of family business. And one of the things, Richard, that you touched on in Strategic Foresight, one of the first phases is discover, like digging into biases and assumptions and how we think about things. And so we had worked with some clients, or a client, and of reimagining the future of family business. And there's this whole CLA tool, we'll kind of get into later, but or to look up. But how do we get below the surface in the stories? And so there's a lot that happens in family businesses of succession planning, right? Of like trying to get the next generation to come in. And the next generation did not want to come in. They didn't want to be doing it the way that mom and dad did it. So we took them through all of these different exercises, and we reimagined what their family business could look like, and really reimagined it being a family enterprise, which then opens up the possibilities. So we're not fighting over one seat at the top. We've got all of these different opportunities. It opens up instead of holding on to this is the way we've always done here. And it transformed the entire family, the entire company, and what they were able to do. And it was back to this, I hadn't thought about it that way moment. Like we were fighting over one chair at the top that didn't matter. And they were able to grow into an enterprise.
It almost sounds like when we talk about zero-sum versus non-zero-sum thinking, that Strategic Foresight can help us imagine a non-zero-sum future where the possibilities are much more limitless than we might dogmatically think they are.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, think of how many problems we could solve if we would get out of the scarcity mindset. Like, there's so much abundance, and that's the really cool thing that you mentioned. There's unlimited possibilities. We're just stuck on, it's not going to work this way. But what if we just moved over here, and all of a sudden there's endless possibilities?
Great. So our next question is going to be around selling Strategic Foresight, and Jenny is going to answer this one first. So, how do you convince an organization that they need to fundamentally change the way they think about their future?
Okay, well, the word convince them. So I have decided recently, relatively, that I'm in the confirming business, not the convincing business. Okay. I mean, it was kind of through the data analytics space as well as I was trying to convince people forever to do something. I believe that a good thing is the world has shifted and things are so different, and most people realize that we need to do things differently. They just don't know how to do it. And so I am really here to be able to say, these are the tools that you can use. I mean, if someone is like, this is the way it's going to be, and I'm going to be like, not moving at all, convincing is a difficult piece. I loved your piece about if you're unsure, research, take a class, read, do. But most people in businesses that are going to succeed in the future have to be doing things differently. Those are the people I want to work with.
Great. So Richard, it's going to be the same question for you. How do you convince an organization that they need to fundamentally change the way that they think about their future?
Yeah. Well, cautionary tales are helpful. Giving examples of where large businesses have failed because they did not anticipate the future. And also, when we were building the practice inside of Walt Disney International, we showed them other large global organizations that embraced foresight, like Shell, or governments, like the government of Singapore, that have been using foresight for 40 plus years, and all of the benefits that they derive from it. And that helped to bring people closer to wanting to start a practice.
So it's now time for the final word. This is where each of you will get to share one final piece of wisdom or one final pearl of advice. And Richard, you're going to go first. So,
Sure.
Richard, it's time for your final word.
I think my final word would be, or 3 words, is the future is now. We have to think about the future, but it's not something that we're waiting to have happen. We have to start doing things differently now based upon where we think things are going, or where, perhaps even better, where we want them to go. The future is now.
Jenny, what is your final word?
I love when you were talking just about hope. I mean, there is so much amazing potential that's happening in the world. And also, I think you had talked about our preferred futures. Like, we spend so much time right now, like, being reactive, of trying to get, focusing on kind of some bad things that are happening and how do we prevent those from happening. But playing out these scenarios of the good that we want to happen. Like, where do we want to go? Like, let's be proactive in the hopeful, amazing world that we want to have happen, and let's practice those conversations. So I just encourage people to play out scenarios in a transformative world. It might seem far-fetched, but we can get there, and the only way that we can get to these transformative, hopeful futures is if we do it together, and if we focus on doing it as opposed to only focusing on stopping the bad.
And there you have the final word. I want to thank you, Jenny and Richard, for joining us on this panel and also for joining us on the TV show today. If you have a question or need advice, connect with us by email, leadership@fullerton.edu, or on Instagram at CSUF CFL. Thank you for tuning in to today's show, where we talked about strategic foresight. Thanks to our featured guests, Jenny Dinnen and Richard Ramsey, for sharing their expertise on this important topic. Join us each episode of The Leadership Voice, where leaders share insights and best practices to make your business thrive. I'm Jay Barbuto here at the Giles O'Malley Center for Leadership, and we'll see you next time right here on The Leadership Voice.